Hello, and welcome to today's video, which will provide an overview of Beam Test. Beam Test is an automated testing tool designed specifically for the PeopleSoft applications. What you see in front of you is the Beam Test application up and running, which consists of three main working areas. On the left is the test suite hierarchy, which contains all the actual tests themselves, the results, any associated test orders, test checkpoints, test table checks, documentation, and associated data files. Everything associated with your testing is stored in this test suite hierarchy here in the working canvas on the left. Contexts are also part of this hierarchy. The context defines the integration to your PeopleSoft system. Each context is a PeopleSoft environment, and we can simply make an environment active, and that PeopleSoft browser is the second area of our working canvas, which you see here right in the middle. We'll log into the PeopleSoft environment, and that is the active environment now connected and integrated to Beam Test. The third area of the working canvas is just below the browser, which is our actual test itself and its test script details. We'll start the overview by doing a simple recording. Do a new test. And what we'll record is the GL journal entry process. Give it a name, start that recording immediately. You see we've got an active recording button. Now our PeopleSoft browser is connected and live, so everything that we do within that browser is now captured and recorded. So as you see, as I navigate through GL, to the journal area, journal entry, that navigation is captured right there in our recording below, including our field inputs. We'll go from the header over to the line tab, input our account, input a department, and amount, put the plus sign for a new row, we'll change that department, and save this journal. Again, as you see, all that action that we've done, both the menus, the tabs, the field actions within PeopleSoft, has been recorded. We will now stop the recording, and we can play that back. So we simply right-click on the test we just created, the demo GL journal. We'll run that test, and it will play back following the navigation and field actions that were defined in that test. Inputting the second row, saving the journal, and as it closes out, it will switch over to a test results view and shows us that our one test actually passed and ran in 21 seconds. We can record in one environment and play back in another. So we're leaving the PeopleSoft Financial 92853 environment. We'll connect to Financial Image 13, which is PeopleTools 854. So we've made a different PeopleSoft environment, our active context, and we can now play back that same script that we recorded in the other context. So again, following the navigation, performing the actual field detail actions, and closing out that script. So because Beam Test has no footprint in your PeopleSoft application, we were able to record in one place, make a different environment the active context, and play that back. It allows us to record and span across PeopleTools versions as well as application versions. But in that example, we did direct manual input. Let's take this one step further. The real world is not looking for single type manual entry transactions. We're looking for a deep, broad-based set of transactions. And what Beam Test will allow you to do is build your data in Excel, so you can build a data sheet that drives the same test script but in a much broader, deeper fashion, all based on the data. Multiple accounts, different departments, different chart fields, different amounts. So we take the data from an Excel data sheet, we load that into test, open that file up in the upper right. We'll keep that kind of small, but you see there's all our fields and values. And what we'll do now is run a recording that actually uses that data file. Here's our GL transactions. We've got a journal add. And in this case, it will now follow our similar navigation to the GL journal entry page. But instead of the input from a manual direct aspect, it goes out to the data sheet. It extracts the values from the data sheet and cycles through the next row. As it does so, it gives you an indicator on each row as it's being processed. So the green circles, the first two rows have passed so far, and it's proceeding on to the third row in our data sheet. The first journal had 2 lines. What we're seeing here is the next journal has 3 lines. So our script is built in the traditional header line fashion, where we have a header and variable number of lines processing through this script. Now moving on to the third journal. 1 row, 2 rows, the third row being input, and in this case a 4th row. That journal is saved, closing out that script and producing the results. Now with our data sheet, you notice that we have one main test, but each row is recorded and tracked as its own individual test. So this is telling us in the minute 21, we actually had 9 tests. They all passed, ran as expected, and we can look at the status of each individual row in our results. Now it's also very common for your data to change, whether it's over time. I'm playing this back in now the 4th quarter rather than the 1st quarter, and I've got to change the dates. Or you've got new values, a broader, deeper test. Again, you want to expand the chart field values or hit different types of accounts and different amounts. Beam Test allows you to do is take in an updated file. So we can replace the file with an updated file. So we'll see we have here another version of our journal ad, which now has over 30 rows. So we have more rows. And we can load that file in. So we'll replace the journal ad file that we just ran. Bring that in. What it will also tell us is, are there any new columns? And if so, we have the option to include them or exclude those. So we'll bring that in, and now we have same script, more data that we could process. So this data-driven testing starts in Excel, where you have all the power of Excel to maintain and expand your data values, giving you a broad, deep test based on the data tied to a script that will process as you cycle that through. Okay, and as you see now, it's processing a new data file, cycling through. I'm going to stop that process so that you have, and just to quickly recap, we have run through the basics of test. We've covered recording a script, playing back that script, and playing that script back in multiple environments. We've shown you the ability to create a data sheet in Excel, load it to test, that gives you a broad-based data-driven testing perspective, including replacing that data file with an updated data sheet. What we'll do now is we'll expand that test so that we've incorporated the data file or the updated columns from that data sheet. So we have to do two things. One, when we loaded that data file in, we accepted that. So we got the new fields, the operating unit in the ledger group. And what we'll do here is we've got to do two things. Position the PeopleSoft system to the right place to accept the new field. What we'll do is we'll come back to the journal entry. So what we have is a ledger group. Right? So instead of always using the recording ledger group, our data file now has been updated so that we'll hit multiple ledger groups. But we now have to add that logic into our script. So we'll open up our script, and we want to position the script in the right place right after the header description, and before we go to the lines. So we will start our recording right here, and what we want to do is record the ledger group, and we will, instead of direct input, we'll accept that value from the data sheet. And that's all we had to do to actually bring in a new field. So we started that. We'll just comment out the initial there. So now we've updated our script, updated our data file to handle the new field, and you see the power and the ease of scripting gives us the ability to edit that script, bring in the new data field. So we'll run that test. And what we should see now is we come into the journal header, we will pick up the header group according to the data file. And you see it grab the adjustment rather than using the default of the recording. All right. Let me expand this example one step further. What you've seen so far is the ability to record and playback, which is really at the core of automated testing. But what you also want to prove as you do your automation is, did PeopleSoft produce the expected results? Did it do what you expected it to do? Did it calculate the sales tax according to your configuration, your details? Have the defaults come in according to your policies, procedures, your controls? When you put in the new patch or the new update, is the system performing the processing and giving you the end result that you actually expected? What we have in Beam Test is what we refer to as checkpoints. We can define the expected result in a checkpoint and compare that to PeopleSoft's actual result. So we can take our journal example, and what we can do is have a checkpoint on the journal status. So we can actually go, after a journal has been processed, go to the actual journal itself and look at, in this case, the verbiage, the text definition regarding that status. Does it have errors? Were there combination edits? Is it successful? So we can add a checkpoint into our processing. So not only does it do the record and playback, but it will actually check our expected results against the actual results. And here you have our journals being processed with a checkpoint. So it comes in and it says we expected combination errors for this journal, and we actually got that. The system produced the error that we expected. Here's a warning message telling us we expected this journal to pass. There'd be no errors on this header. That did not happen. That text was not there because there were errors. In this case, everything was expected to pass, and the actual message that there are no errors did occur. So you can build your expected results into your test script using checkpoints to compare did PeopleSoft perform as you expected, and get the detailed results of that by row in your data sheet to tell you exactly what happened. Did it perform as expected? One other thing you can do here in Beam is you can kind of string together a business process test. So what we'll do is give you a quick example where we're actually performing a workflow test. We're going to come into the system. So let me sign out. So we'll log in our recording. We're actually logging in as someone that can enter journals. We will create the journal, show that it cannot be self-approved, log out of the system, then move on logging in as the approver and do the actual approval function. So it's now coming in, we're entering the journal, go to the approval page and see that self-service or self-approval is not allowed. I log out, coming back in as the approver, and now we'll perform the approval function. So using this type of functionality in conjunction with the data file, again, not just a broader, deeper test based on data values, but now I can get a broader, deeper test across functionality. Is it being routed to the right approvers? Are the approvers getting the journals from the right journal entry folks? So that broad-based testing that just never occurs when you're doing this work manually, you can build into your data sheets and build into your process. You can also run all of these tests in a documentation mode. Let me log back in as, well, actually we'll run the workflow test in the documentation mode. So here's the workflow. So instead of just running the test, we run it in a create documentation mode. or give our document a name. And when it plays back in the documentation mode, what it will do is capture all the screenshots, highlighting the navigation, highlighting the field actions, capturing those screenshots for you, and then we can package that entire process up into a Word document, a single Word document. So as this is playing back, again, it's following the flow that we just saw. Denied self-approval, log in as the approver. Form the actual approval. And in this case, when it closes and completes that playback, what it will do is produce a document, what we refer to as the business process document. Of all the screenshots and all the field actions that just occurred. And here is our business process document, the actual input, moving on through the navigation, highlighting the field actions, moving on to the second login as the approver, going to the approval action, forming the approval, checking to make sure all is approved, and we can package that entire thing up into a document, into a Word document that we can then continue to add or distribute. This has been excellent for not only documenting your testing, but supporting audit requirements, as well as being used for training results and instructional documents. The last feature I would like to mention is our test orders. I'll actually open up a separate test suite. In this test suite, we have many of the GL setup scripts. And in this case, just like we may have wanted to do in the workflow, is individual scripts run together in a certain order. We have a test order workbench where we can take all our detailed scripts, define them to be run in any order that we choose. So we have over a half dozen setup scripts that go from the business unit add to the ledger add to the ledgers for a unit into the approval definition. We can run that entire set in that predefined order. This allows us to do both regression testing, allows us to string many tests together, for example in this setup. And what it does is allows us to build targeted, very focused scripts so that our script maintenance is easy, but allows a playback to be a broader based functionality. So you can play back a broader set of actions overnight. You can play them back and then see the results in the morning. And again, you have full control with this workbench to put any of these scripts into the order that you choose. And that's it for today's highlight as we've run through the recording, the playback, our use of data files for data-driven testing, checkpoints for expected versus actual results, their documentation feature, and their test order feature. Thank you.